when we look at success, it's very easy to look at it after people have already made it. And then we say, this is what you do to get successful. But it may not be what we do to get successful. That may just be attributes that everybody who was successful had in common, but we didn't check and see if the people that didn't make it also had that attribute in common. It is the fundamental survivorship bias that we deal with. Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth. My name is Paul Adams. I'm the CEO and founder of Sound Financial Group. I am joined today by Corey Shepard, a man who's been traveling, a man everybody has missed, and a man who, frankly, caused our YouTube views to go up because everybody likes looking at this guy. Corey, so glad you're here.
Hello. I'm so glad to be back. You know, I've heard it said that once you have kids, you stop going on vacations and start taking trips. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what the time away was all about. It was a trip away, but it's a nice vacation from the trip to be back on the show. So
indeed. And I've got to say, just to all the fans of the show, I want to say thank you for those of you that talked to me while Corey was gone. Corey, they were really nice to me. They let me down easy. They didn't tell me the show is terrible without you. What they would all say is the chemistry between you and Corey is so good, which makes me feel like there's an ugly baby, which is when I'm on the podcast by myself, but nobody tells me that baby's ugly. They just tell me how good looking my other baby is. So we'll keep Corey around for as much as possible, as often as possible, because today we have an amazing topic. We are going to teach you how to be rich instead of poor. That's right. We're going to teach you how to be rich rather than poor in only 11 bullets. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be able to successfully do that, but New Trader U in their blog thinks so. And if you guys are ever wondering how we dig up these articles, it's because I'm up in them internets every day looking for stuff like this.
He is finding it. Paul is kind of like the Twitter censor. You know, there's people that have to just, spend all day in a call center just looking at horrible content, violence, improper, bad things being done to people to filter it off of Facebook or Twitter. That's what Paul's does for all of us with the financial media.
I can't tell you how much really terrible advice I see that we don't bring to the show. And mainly because Corey's like, I don't know how we talk about that without you looking like a total jerk, Paul. So he keeps things off the radar.
Right. It's so, yeah. Oh my
so
gosh.
Here is our article. Let me give everybody the title, 11 Habits of the Rich versus the Poor. And then in parentheses, financial literacy. Now,
right away, I was just curious if maybe AI might have generated this article, because look at these pictures. Like, what is this comparison? Attractive, young, fancy woman and someone 40 years older in a hoodie, like still a woman at least, but it's one of those really odd juxtapositions that is what you get when you're playing with Midjourney or Chat GPT and something comes out that's like, kind of makes sense, but is kind of weird. Like, what?
Like somebody took the same picture of the same woman and put it like, make one rich, make one old, and it just aged them. Right. It's probably the same person. And the reason the rich picture in this case doesn't make sense to me, nothing against Starbucks baristas, but I've seen Starbucks baristas dressed nicer than the lady who's supposed to be the rich one on Instagram. It ain't that hard to put together an outfit, especially if you only have to do it from the shoulders up.
Right. Those are $10 Foster grants from CVS. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think the thing that we should warn people, Corey, I don't know if they've picked up yet, that we are being a little bit facetious. We're not actually going to show you how to be rich at the end of these 11 steps. Right. That's I want to make sure nobody misses that at the beginning. And then at number 4, they're like, oh, I'm just being made fun of.
Oh, I should start taking notes. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. We are making fun of both the people in this article. And to be clear, we're also making fun of everybody who thought this was a good article and then like changed how they were spending next week based upon what they read here.
Right. Like, so, and I think the important question to ask at the beginning of any piece of content is, what are they actually selling?
Mm-hmm.
What are they actually selling? We own a financial firm. We want to have more clients. We also want to create really good content for our clients. Like, that's what we're selling. And that's what we're about, that long-term relationship. And we've got a whole business model that supports us. But if you don't know what the business model is or what they're selling, then you don't really know what the angle is on the article.
And the part 2 of that is not only what are they selling, but who are they working for? Now, in an article like this, they may be selling something, but who are they working for? Is like, well, be clear that we're not paid based upon clicks on an article. We're paid by our clients. That's who we're working for. And who we're accountable to is like all kinds of government agencies who regulate our industry.
Right.
Now, what are they selling in this case? New Trader U, trading online, technical analysis, all that. We'll show you some of that in a minute. That's what they're selling. Who are they accountable to? Maybe journalistic standards. That's it.
Ooh, maybe. Maybe, right? Which I don't even think, like, they don't have an identity, nor are they part of a community of journalistic standards. Like, if this was an article in the Wall Street Journal or Fox News or even Yahoo News, right? This is not part of any of those. Paul, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but what if we started at number 11 to give us context what all the other ones are going to mean or pointing to?
Well, what I love about this, right before we get to that, I want to just read this paragraph to everybody. It's like the only sort of beginning writing on the article. Financial literacy is a cornerstone of wealth creation. It's not about how much money you make it's not about how much money you make, but how you make, manage, and grow it. The difference between the rich and poor often lies in their habits and mindset. By understanding and adopting the habits of self-made millionaires, you can transform your financial future. Now, by the way, again, we're just looking for, just off the top of our head, true or accurate. By understanding and adopting the habits of self-made millionaires, you can transform yourself. You can transform your financial future. I would say that could be true.
Yeah.
And it could also be not true.
Non-zero probability of being true. Right.
Yep.
Right.
So here are the 11 habits. We are going to start at number 11. Corey, should I go? I don't think I want to go through all their texts. Oh, I got to it pretty quick. Here we go. Rich people, Corey, habitually win by making their money work hard for them through investing business assets. Poor people work hard for their money.
So just with the clicking we've done through the rest of this site, the context that becomes clear to me is that this is the final loop to send you to, hey, here's how you can buy things from us to help you have that rich person mindset.
Indeed.
Which is a mindset specifically around, making that money work extra hard, better than anyone else, take your trading to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Swing trading strategies for just $69. You can learn that one. Price action trading, New Trader 101, let's view all products. How many do they have? It's refreshing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 courses. Or you can get the package. The package is gone. Oh, there it is down at the bottom. All 9 courses, only $450. Now,
and like for me, I just it's not like, it makes sense that he would have some content. They would have some content tied to the other. It all looks like it's this Burns guy. So I'm just kind of saying he, because it looks like he wrote them all. It's almost that, like, I know what it's trying to do. It makes me feel bad a little reading this article 1 through 11. Like I should be doing something else. I think it's got this really negative context. It's almost like fear mongering is the way that he's doing it. It's negging. It's like negging someone every step along the way.
Now,
to get them to buy.
I don't think everybody knows what negging is. Corey. So can you enlighten?
I don't know what's negging. I would never.
Let me explain.
So, negging, I've heard. No, like I got married before really like internet dating or apps. Like I didn't get a chance to use this like before I knew what it was. It's like preying on. It usually is a straight man doing it to a straight woman. Like that's 99.5% of the time, I think. But it's that like backhanded comment. It's that like saying like, oh yeah, I like that dress. Too bad your legs aren't just right for it, or something like something weird like that like makes it's supposed to like produce a little Stockholm syndrome in someone else.
Yeah, like you are really smart for, working at a bar, or you don't sweat much for a fat girl. These would all be negging, like sort of a compliment, but with a little barb, so that it's not like I'm not too nice to you. And it's intended in pickup circles to produce attraction. And that's kind of what we're getting in some of these articles. I really like the distinction, Corey, is we're getting negged on a little bit. Like you could be better. You'd be a better person and have better results. So they're, again, number 11 on the list is rich people habitually win by making their money work hard for them through investing, business, and assets. Poor people work hard for the money. Now, what you guys are going to notice is a trend here. Like, I think what they did is they went to ChatGPT and said, can you give me 11 things that are growth mindset versus a fixed mindset? And then it gave them this, and they just did a Control F and changed growth mindset to rich and fixed mindset to poor.
Number 9, for like, I get what they're saying is, like have your assets work for you. But if you're I don't know, really specialized surgeon and you're making $2 million a year, your working income is a thing to focus on for a while.
And for those of you listening, number 9 is rich people habitually focus on their net worth and cash flow. Poor people focus on their working income. But it'd be perfectly fine to focus on your working income when you're making enough of it. Rich people habitually learn and grow. This is number 10. Poor people think they already know everything. Like, I would agree. But again, This is not a rich versus poor thing. You could be poor, have a great growth mindset, and be a pastor. And you're just never going to be worth $20 million. Right? You could be the principal of a school working in those services, and you would not be making the kind of money that would make you rich by their standard. And yet you could have all of these attributes. Rich people, number 8, have the habit of creating cash flowing assets. Poor people have the habit of being their employer's cash flow asset. Now, by the way, I
do like that line.
The play on words is very crafty.
Yeah,
I agree with. But again, this is not rich versus poor. I would say it's a wealth mindset versus somebody who's not attempting to build wealth, or a fixed mindset versus somebody whose mindset grows and evolves and realizes at some point I need assets for cash flow. Rich people get paid. Oh, go ahead. I was going to go number 7.
Well, I was going to say that the article, rich people get paid habitually on results. Poor people choose to get paid based on selling their time.
That's number 7. Yep.
Like that's number 7. I would agree that if you're trading dollars for hours, there's a limit, there's a ceiling to the results that you're going to be able to produce. But again, we use the example of a really highly paid surgeon. They're trading dollars for hours. They're a highly paid hourly worker at the end of the day. Nothing wrong with that. This article doesn't paint a line of like over which or under which you'll be depending on these results. Like, what does rich mean or poor mean? Like, it doesn't say that. I guess it says habits of self-made millionaires.
Yeah. So just think about it from this perspective, because you're right. They don't draw the line, but it's actually the negging of the article is actually going to produce that feeling. Because guess what? If you're worth a couple of $1 million, you're making $500,000 a year, you probably don't look at yourself as rich. So you're looking through this article and still being pulled forward by it because, like, I know I'm not as rich as that person that's making $800,000 a year and worth $8 million.
Right.
So let's, but by the way, is it a good idea to be paid upon your results? I think so. Like if you could do it, great. But again, they make everything poor as bad. Rich people habitually sell themselves in their businesses. Poor people think selling and promotion are bad. Now, I will point to this one. I do think this is a habit that is more common among high income earners, period. Now, which it is this idea that there's a great book out there for any of you. This might actually be a career enhancement thing. For any of you that feel like you have an internal bias against self-promotion, you find yourselves being bothered when other people self-promote, or you find a resistance to you promoting yourself. A great book to pick up is by Daniel Pink, and it's called To Sell is Human. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. Great. But it's this idea that we all, whether you're a mom getting the kids to clean the room, you're negotiating with a housekeeper, you are trying to navigate the purchase of a home. You're selling. We all are all the time. Just most people are not good at it, mostly because they carry around a problem with that idea of self-promotion. Right. And so I would agree with this one. I just don't necessarily agree it's a rich-poor thing, but that's how they chose to settle it. Number 5, rich people habitually model other wealthy and successful people. Poor people resent and are jealous of wealthy and successful people. I would throw out to anybody listening, to the extent that you are green with envy in some way for anybody else, that is likely not to lead to you having the kind of outcomes you want in life.
I also know a lot of people with a lot of money that really only got there because they were driven by some internal jealousy about, right? And they have a lot of money, but they're not happy in their life. See, what this article doesn't hit on is satisfaction.
Amen.
Like there's a certain amount of money that we probably need to just take care of ourselves, and like under which it'll be harder to be happy. And there have been studies about that, like the $70,000 income level in our country. And of course, that's an old enough study that inflation might be taking that a little bit higher now. But anyway,
after recent inflation data, it's 140,000.
Right. Yeah, right. But like, how satisfied are you with your life? And I would say, satisfied people habitually model other wealthy and successful people. Unsatisfied people resent and are jealous of wealthy and successful people. Like you could trade those out for rich or for poor.
Yep. And it also reminds me, Corey, a lot of something we say to our kids all the time. Comparison is the thief of all joy. Mm-hmm. And I think this leads to it, because even if you were driving yourself based upon comparison, to your point, it doesn't feel very good when you get there. Number 4, rich people have the habit of focusing on opportunities. Poor people have the habit of focusing on obstacles. This one I would totally disagree with. Corey and I know some very wealthy people who the first thing they see is the problem and how to deal with it.
That's personality types. That's kind of how your brain relates to the world. And there's a wide spectrum of results across all those types.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep. All right. Next up, number 3, rich people have the habit of thinking big. Poor people have the habit of thinking small. Now, I will tell you.
I don't really even know what that means.
No.
I've heard that a lot, but what is that? But if you just stop, like, what does it even mean?
Well, I think what they think it means when they write it. Let me, I'll do my, for those of you that are old Johnny Carson fans, I'll do a little great Karnak.
Karnak?
Yeah. Is that what they're doing is I'm reading minds now. They feel like rich people have to have huge ideas and taking down the world. And, I'll never forget how many people I've talked to over the years who have $1 billion idea. Now, many of them, that's many, many years ago, it never turned into $1 billion idea. Yet there was a guy that lived on the outskirts of Vegas, and he had a very profitable business, and he's a pig farmer. And there was the big housing boom. I lived in Las Vegas right as the 2005, 6, 7, 8 was going on. So
I never know if Paul's starting a dad joke or if he's telling us a real story. We just
you just got to ride along, and then you'll see when we get there. So he had a big bunch of land, and this property was going for an insane amount of money because the North Las Vegas was kind of growing out toward this guy, and nobody wanted to be located near him because it just smelled like pig crap. And they kept coming to him and making him offers, ridiculous offers. One company offered him $45 million for his land and agreed to build him a state-of-the-art pig farm an hour away. So total deal was $70 million. And you know what he said? He says, sounds to me like you're trying to make me a rich man. I just want to be a pig farmer. That's all I want to do. Be a pig farmer. That's how he sounded. And he lived a simple life. He didn't think big, but he amassed a really incredible amount of wealth, even in his pig farming, that he didn't need to think big. Many people listening to this, you might not need to think big to go make $400,000 a year. You just need to think big enough to make $400,000 a year, and you can save a ton of money on $400,000 a year, and you could have a wealthy life. So it doesn't need to be rich people have this big idea, which, by the way, this is probably the most ad-laden website we have ever had on our podcast. I can't believe the amount of graphics going on in the background just while we're trying to talk through the article. I feel like I'm being on their webpage, Corey. I feel like if I could get inside of attention deficit disorder and look around, it would look a lot like this page. Number 2, rich people have the habit of creating goals. Poor people have the habit of letting circumstances control them. Now, we refer this to as somebody being adult versus being an ambitious adult. Mm-hmm. And there are plenty of adults out there that are perfectly, all kinds of, probably in their career, they're proactive, but they might let things come at them on the family front or things come at them on an economic front, right? That we can't control everything, but we don't have to be in a position of letting, how would you put it? You don't circumstantial control all parts of your life, and yet you could still create wealth. And yet it's probably a good idea. I don't like the idea of goals. Here at Sound Financial Group and at the podcast, we like to talk about as having aims, and then what's our system going to be for achieving the aim. Then you execute the system. If the system doesn't work, change the system. But don't try to set a goal and then operate as if your tactics can achieve the goal. It's going to take a strategy, and it might not be right the first time. So you set up the system and execute the system.
Because the world's a super complicated place. And just to say, I'm going to do X to get result Y is underselling the complexity by a huge factor. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to building real wealth. Mm-hmm. All right. Last but not least, number 1, rich people have the habit of believing they create their life. Poor people have the habit of believing life happens to them. Now, it is funny. I know this is crazy. I made the choice to put this article in the lineup, Corey, just from reading the first 11 bullets. I didn't even have to get into this. Yeah. And I've been talking about it being a growth versus fixed mindset, but I didn't read that part until just now. And yet, if we rewrote this whole, I think that it says growth mindset versus fixed mindset. I think that's what they accidentally left in when they had it formatted from ChatGPT.
I think it leaves out no one starts from exactly the same position. Right. Most people listening to this podcast right now won a lottery by being born in the US during a time when we weren't in the middle of a war, we eventually hit a big disease like COVID, but it wasn't like malaria or Ebola or something right? So you've got a leg up. So growth mindset versus fixed mindset is where are you going from where you started? There's lots of people who are already wealthy, and if they had adopted some of these things, could have been 30 times more than they were. And some people that,
or they could have been bankrupt. If they took that thing of like, I got to think big if I'm going to be rich. And so rather than, testing this strategy and seeing if it works, like, I kid you not, Corey.
I'm going all in on this BlackBerry thing. Yeah, this is the future. Right.
Well, I'll give you another one. We had a client that worked for a very successful company, kept turning out the results. Everything went well. And then a new thing came on the marketplace. And he flushed all his cash into the new thing. And for all the reasons you would think, it should have sold to their customers, and it didn't. Wiped them out. Business is over. And our client was their top sales guy. And he's like, if he would have just let me continue to sell the thing we'd always been selling, we'd have been fine. But he literally used the cash that was used to order the inventory of the old stuff to buy the new thing that was going to be the great new groundbreaking whatever. And the business just went away. So it's like you could have these quote unquote self-made millionaire mindsets. And the thing is, they may or may not have worked. And in life, period. And this would be the thing that I think is the biggest takeaway from this. And in fact, Miranda, maybe for the sake of our audience, and you can leave this part in, put this right at the beginning of the episode, because I think this is the part people need to hear most. And that is that when we look at success, it's very easy to look at it after people have already made it. And then we say, this is what you do to get successful. But it may not be what we do to get successful. That may just be attributes that everybody who was successful had in common, but we didn't check and see if the people that didn't make it also had that attribute in common. It is the fundamental survivorship bias that we deal with.
Yeah.
That it's so easy to be like, oh, look at all these successful people. They did this. You can do that. It's like, we probably need to study the failures just as much as we study those who succeed, which is why we have to have aims for the future that we want to have. We have the system by which we're going to work to achieve it. And then we have to check back on that system on a consistent, ongoing basis to see if it's actually producing the results that we want. Like, it's not a matter, like, as an example, this would be just as silly to write an article saying what you should do is worship the lake god Xanu, because we found a lot of millionaires worship the lake god Xanu, but they didn't check to see if there was a higher ratio of people worshiping the lake god Xanu that never made it. That's the point. We could say all we want about what it took to be successful, but it doesn't mean it's distinguished. I love reading articles like this from the standpoint of like, is there anything new or something that give me an aha? That's good. But know that this is like the intellectual sugar of our diet. It's good to have a short experience, but not for long-term nutrition.
I realized just now why I love books like Dr. Thomas Stanley's The Millionaire Next Door, because that's the people who got rich quietly, and they were just too busy living their lives simply. They weren't into sharing the advice. He kind of figured out how to pull it out of them reluctantly by doing these surveys and focus groups. So many times you see an article like this or a book about secrets to the millionaire mindset, it's like they're only doing it because they're selling something else behind it. And so I think that skews the advice. It's very hard to get it. I just want to meet the person who just did it and doesn't care about sharing it. Like that's who I want.
Yeah, that's the guys whose stories we want to extract, right? Is the guy who didn't do anything enormously special. Is like, you know what would be great is the guy who says, you know what I did? I woke up at 4:30 every morning. I read for 2 hours. I did my workout. I worked a solid 6 hours a day. I was always home for dinner. And I saved 20% of my income. Now, by the way, that right there is some version of all the wealthiest people you've ever met. Most of them are that way. Because
that plan has as near to 100% success rate as a plan could possibly have. That's it. Just without anything else. Yeah.
But here's the problem. How much content could you generate off that? Like we
Boring.
couldn't, we can write 100 articles like this and post them. No problem. But the things that work, I mean, by the way, guys, do you wonder why on this podcast we talk about all the things that don't work? Because we've already talked about all the things that work on this podcast, and they ain't that many.
It's not.
Right?
This just in. Guy still getting up early, reading, going to work, and saving 20% of his income. Like that's the new article.
Still getting a little richer every year.
Still working. Yeah.
That's just it. And now we are going deeper on some of these topics. You're gonna I'm let the little cat out of the bag. I've been holding on to it. We're going to do a little branding change on the podcast. You're going to be able to get it in the same places. Don't be surprised. All that stuff's going to come in the next couple months. But we're going to go back and revisit a bunch of that how-to content. So we can give you guys, like, you can go do this, you can go do that in bite-sized pieces so that you have the ability to go take action. It's going to be important. I also want you guys to know we put everything on this channel that we do in client meetings. We're not keeping anything from all of you as an audience. It's just a matter of us getting it all lined up to get it on the podcast. But that's the reason why we don't have some new cool idea every week on the podcast. There's some new cool, this is how you get rich, because our aim isn't to have you get through the next commercial break. But incidentally, if you did want help with your money, be sure to subscribe and like the video, comment below. And if you wanted to have an appointment with someone on our team, you can email us at info@sfgwa.com. There's the advertisement. But we didn't need you guys to stay through a commercial break because our job is to bring you good advice, something you find entertaining and is halfway well produced. That's it. And it won't be cool or sexy, and you will never leave the podcast being like, this is the key to my overall financial success. No different than you never leave a doctor's office, even a holistic physician saying, I just unlocked all of my health issues from that one podcast or that one doctor's meeting. Because it's a series of habits over a lifetime maintaining this system called your body, but we're just maintaining a system called your finances. So no different than brushing your teeth every single day. There's a bunch of habits and practices, accountabilities and coaching that we all need to have in order to have a successful financial life because we only got one. Which is why we encourage all of you to work with an advisor who has experienced many, many lifetimes of somebody's finances. You know, I've been at this 25 plus years and I've seen God knows how many balance sheets every single year. So I've experienced many, many, many more years of financial planning than the years I've been in the business. And what we want to be able to do is take what we've learned, be able to apply it to your balance sheet and kind of take away all this fun, here's how to get rich candy out in the marketplace. So with that, as always, from Corey, and I want to let you know, this is just from Corey today. Because he missed you guys. It was really important to him. And Corey and no one else at Sound Financial Group hopes that this episode has been a contribution to you being able to design and build a good life.